Okay, building resilience. I'm going to look at a couple different ideas of how you can build resilience. First of all, it's important to have boundaries. The whole idea of establishing resilience and better mental and physical health in throughout your career is to have some balance between your work world, your home world, and your self, your internal self. And so boundaries between work and home are an important thing. And that can be physical boundaries, or they can be something that's a little less clearly defined. So this is Fred Rogers, who was Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood from 1968 until 2002. And so one of the things that they always did in that show was at the beginning of the show, he was coming into the house and he was dressed like people were basically dressed for work at that time, in an overcoat and suit coat. And then he'd come in the house, and the first thing that he would do is change into his cardigan and change his shoes for either sneakers or slippers. So that was a signal to everybody that watched the show, but also to your own brain, or to his own brain, that that was work, that was out there, and then this is home, this is in here. So what that might look like for you is to leave your uniform at work, for example, or to have some kind of a ritual when you first get home, either that you change out of your uniform as soon as you get home, or take a shower, or something that you do as soon as you get home. Or it could be the music that you listen to on the way home, or maybe not listening to anything. Sometimes people who have worked in dispatch and have been listening to other things all day, the first thing you do when you get in the car is turn everything off and have a few minutes of silence. And actually, in these situations, it can be better to have a little bit of a commute than if you just have 5 minutes from work to home. And the whole idea is that home is a separate and distinct place, and to not carry things in. So it may be not talking about things, not talking about work when you get home, or it may be that that may be the first thing that you do, is talk to whoever lives in your house, or talk to somebody about what has gone on during the day, and then be done with it. Mindfulness is another technique that you can use in order to help you establish those boundaries. Most people have heard of mindlessness. I'm going to give an example of that in a minute. Uh, but it's really a simple idea. The core of it is simple. It's something that people practice for a long time, and the more that you practice it, the better you get at it. But really, at the core, all mindfulness is being where you are at the moment and involved in what you're doing. So the mindlessness example is you get in your car and you're getting ready to go somewhere, that a trip that you've made frequently, so it's familiar to you. You get in your car and you back out of the driveway, and then the next thing that you know, you're at your destination. You don't have any particular memory of how you got there, or driving down the streets, or what traffic was like, or anything else. That's mindlessness. So mindfulness would be seeing, noting what the traffic is like, or the weather, or something like that, or that the trees are starting to bloom. It's basically just practicing being where you are at the moment. There are a number of activities where it's helpful, or where you can practice this, are things that don't require a lot of mental energy. For example, if you wash dishes by hand, that's something that doesn't take a lot of thought. So while you're doing it, you can practice thinking about what the soapy water feels like on your hands, and what the temperature of the water is like, and that kind of thing. And just think about what you're doing at that moment. It also can be helpful in terms of doing your job. We all have, especially people who've been in this job for a while, in these dispatch jobs for a while, you get people who are your regulars and call in frequently enough so that you know, as soon as you see a name or a phone number come up, or the dispatcher sees a name on a call, or that you know, you have an idea, you make assumptions about what that call is going to be about. And the reality of it is that sometimes that can lead to mistakes. And it's important to listen to people. It's important to listen to people, even if they have called you 8,000 times in the past or 8,000 times in the past month, because you never know for sure. An example of this, several years ago, we had a house fire, and the house fire was on Hill Street. And so, as happens when that kind of stuff does, the phones are lighting up. And so, people who aren't actively involved in dispatching are picking up the phone and saying, 911, is this an emergency? And then maybe eventually, 911, are you calling about the fire on Hill Street? And so then if people say yes, you say, okay, thank you, we've already got it. Problem is, Hill Street's a long street, and there were 2 fires on Hill Street. And the second one didn't get a timely response because the assumption was made that people who were calling about the fire on Hill Street were calling about the first fire on Hill Street. So very important to listen to what's going on, and very easy to not do that, especially when you're busy. I like this picture as an illustration of the difference between having your mind full and being mindful. The person is thinking about everything except what is in front of them, while the dog is just in the moment, which is what we're practicing to do. So we're going to do a little breathing exercise here. So first of all, I'm going to ask you to put your feet flat on the floor and your hands comfortably in your lap or on the table in front of you. And you can close your eyes if you want. And I'm going to have you breathe in for 4 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold your breath for 4 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then breathe out for 4 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. You can open your eyes now if you closed them. I do this exercise frequently when I do presentations, and even though I'm not really doing the exercise, I always feel like my blood pressure goes down a little bit while I do it. This is something that is simple to do and to do just about anywhere, even when you're driving, as long as you don't do the part where you close your eyes, and you can do it repeatedly. You can do it for 4 counts and then breathe out for 4 counts and then start all over again. It's just a way to practice being aware of where you are and being aware of your breathing. So meditation is really just studying or practicing to be mindful. Again, sometimes we think these things are more complicated than they are. There's a bunch of things online that can help you get started doing meditation or practicing mindfulness. The one that I have put up here is called Insight Timer, and they start out for like 3 minutes, 3-minute meditations, and really all the meditation is guided relaxation. So they ask you to shut your eyes and then maybe scrunch up your eyebrows and then relax them, and do that with different parts of your body in order to relax it. And so while you're doing that, you're also being aware of where you are and what you're doing. And so when you first start out, often your mind will kind of wander into the next thing, and that's okay. You just kind of pull it back and let that go. And as you go on, it should get easier. And then there are longer meditation exercises as well. Another thing that is really helpful is to watch how much media you take in, particularly the kind that is on the internet. It's amazing how this has changed just in the last 10 or 15 years. It's moved fast. There was a time when TV stopped at 11 or 12 at night, and it was possible to not even know what happened over the night while you were sleeping. And now you can work it out so you really don't ever, in fact, it's almost harder to make it that way than to be notified whenever stuff happens. And the problem with this is that it's continual, and B, with social media being the source of news for a lot of people and in a lot of situations, not only do you have the news, which may or may not be objective, you also have this huge anonymous platform of comments from people who have probably absolutely no idea what's really going on. So one thing that you can do is to delete social media apps off your phone, whatever your preferred apps are, and then setting limits in terms of your laptop or whatever other device you use, so that you're looking at the news, but you're only taking in a certain amount of it. And then I really, as much as you can, keep it to the news and not the opinions, because the opinions are just probably going to make you mad. We're so connected all the time, possibly too much. For example, this study shows that an average adult spends 11 hours a day on electronic media. So really, if you're working 8, 10, 12-hour shifts, and then some places you get calls to text and that kind of thing. So really, just by virtue of your job, you're already spending 8, 10, or 12 hours on electronics. And then there's the whole idea of what time you spend when you're not working. So whatever you can do to limit that is good.